Nobody likes Gianni Infantino. The FIFA president has become one of the most unpopular figures in modern sport. And unlike some public figures who are simply victims of bad press, Infantino's reputation has largely been shaped by his own decisions. Over the years, he has built an image of a leader driven by ego, someone who is willing to do anything for money, and someone who has a willingness to treat the beautiful game like it's his local business. One of the biggest reasons Infantino has become so unpopular is his relentless push to bring private equity into football. For decades, FIFA made its money the traditional way. It sold television rights, sponsorships, and tickets while keeping full control over its competitions. Infantino wanted to change that. Instead of simply selling broadcasting rights, he repeatedly explored selling ownership stake in FIFA's biggest tournament to private investors. His first attempt came in 2018. Behind closed doors, Infantino presented FIFA's ruling council with a confidential proposal reportedly worth $25 billion. The reaction was overwhelmingly negative. UEFA and many of Europe's biggest clubs immediately pushed back, arguing that the proposal lacked even the most basic financial transparency. They also feared that a privately funded FIFA club competition would become a direct rival to the Champions League, threatening Europe's biggest club tournament. So the plan collapsed. For most people, that would have been the end of the story. For Infantino, it wasn't. He tried it again. This time, FIFA unveiled a project called FIFA Forward Enterprise. The idea was to create a brand new commercial company valued at around $20 billion that would control the commercial rights to FIFA's biggest competitions, including the Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup, and the expanded Club World Cup. Infantino's plan was to sell a 20% stake in that company to private equity investors in exchange for roughly $4.2 billion in immediate funding. You got the FIFA president treating the World Cup like it's a Shark Tank offer. But the thing is, Infantino needed the support from FIFA's 211 member associations. To encourage them to back the project, FIFA proposed distributing one-off payments reportedly worth between $20 million and $40 million to every national federation if the new structure was approved. But all 55 member associations of UEFA said they would boycott the World Cup if this went through. Even CONCACAF publicly criticized the process. According to the Times, there were concerns that once Infantino eventually leaves the FIFA presidency, he could move into a senior leadership role within FIFA Forward Enterprise itself. It looked like a president willing to commercialize the sport's most valuable competitions while potentially creating future opportunities for himself. Keep in mind, people were already frustrated with Infantino over the way the 2026 World Cup was managed, one of the biggest criticisms being ticket prices. Many supporters complained that attending matches had become significantly more expensive than previous tournaments, with FIFA using dynamic pricing for certain ticket categories, causing prices to fluctuate with demand. That meant that lifelong supporters were being priced out, while corporate hospitality packages and premium experiences appeared to get greater support. Then you have the addition of a halftime show and water breaks, all clearly aimed at making more money. They tried to market the hydration breaks as a safety protocol for the players, but it was pretty obvious that it was to run more commercials. Football matches went from 2 halves to 4 quarters like it was basketball. Infantino's close relationship with political leaders also didn't help him. In particular, his relationship with Donald Trump. FIFA established a commercial office inside Trump Tower in New York, a decision that a lot of people viewed as unnecessary political signal. Infantino also faced a lot of criticism after missing the opening of a FIFA Congress while attending a diplomatic trip involving, once again, his boyfriend, President Trump. His decision to also present Trump with a newly created FIFA Peace Prize was widely questioned and frankly mocked. People saw it as an overly political gesture rather than anything to do with football or actual peace. FIFA was getting way too close to a host nation at the World Cup, and them delaying Balogun's suspension so that he could be eligible for the game versus Belgium didn't help these allegations. It was clear that something fishy was going on. Now, it's natural that people don't like or trust Infantino. Yes, he's a sketchy guy, but you also have to understand the history of the position he's in. The FIFA presidency has long been associated with power, secrecy, and scandal. Infantino inherited that culture. The modern story of FIFA's corruption is often traced back to João Havelange, who led the organization from 1974 to 1998. Havelange transformed FIFA from a relatively modest sports body into a global commercial powerhouse, massively increasing the value of the World Cup and expanding football's reach around the world. But his presidency was also clouded by corruption. The ISL scandal later revealed that Havelange and members of his family accepted millions of dollars in bribes from sports marketing companies in exchange for valuable World Cup television and commercial rights. The scandal became one of the darkest chapters in FIFA's history and cemented the perception that football's governing body operated with almost no transparency. When Havelange stepped down in 1998, his longtime ally, Sepp Blatter, took over. Blatter proved to be a more skilled political operator. He understood that every FIFA member association, whether it represented Brazil or a tiny island nation, received exactly one vote in presidential elections. That meant smaller football nations held enormous political influence. Sepp Blatter built lasting support by directing FIFA development funding towards associations across Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and Oceania. Critics argued that these financial programs created a loyal voting bloc that repeatedly kept him in power despite the growing number of corruption allegations surrounding FIFA. While everything finally came crashing down in 2015, in one of the biggest corruption investigations in sports history, US authorities launched a sweeping investigation into FIFA. Several senior officials were arrested during dramatic early morning raids at Zurich's Bourg au Lac Hotel, while prosecutors unveiled charges involving racketeering, wire fraud, and hundreds of millions of dollars in alleged bribery connected to media rights, sponsorships, and tournament hosting. Blatter's own presidency soon collapsed as well, following an internal ethic investigation into a controversial payment made to former UEFA president Michel Platini. He was suspended and eventually banned from football. The scandal left FIFA facing the biggest credibility crisis in its history. So when Gianni Infantino became FIFA president in 2016, he inherited an organization in complete crisis. Major sponsors were reconsidering their partnerships. Fans had lost trust in football's governing body, and criminal investigations were exposing just how deep the problems ran. Infantino campaigned as the man who could fix it all. He promised greater transparency, stronger governance, independent oversight, and a complete break from the Blatter era. After everything FIFA had been through, many believed he would finally clean up the organization. It's comical to see now, because more than anything, he just modernized the same system. One of the clearest examples is the FIFA Forward program. The initiative was designed to provide more funding to national football associations around the world, and under Infantino, those payments increased dramatically. Supporters viewed it as a way to grow football globally. Critics saw something very different. Because every FIFA member nation has one vote in presidential elections, many argued that increasing financial support also strengthened Infantino's political position. Just as Sepp Blatter had relied on development funding to build support among smaller associations, critics claimed Infantino had expanded the same strategy on an even larger scale. The biggest difference was how he approached the business side of FIFA. Havelange and Blatter were associated with bribery scandals involving television rights, marketing companies, and backroom political deals. Infantino came from a legal and administrative background, and his approach reflected that. Instead of secret payments and marketing agencies, his presidency became associated with private equity proposals, billion-dollar commercial restructurings, dynamic ticket pricing, expanded tournaments, and increasingly corporate ways of generating revenue. To the people close to him who like him, this was simply modernizing FIFA for a new era. To his critics, it was something else entirely. They believed Infantino didn't eliminate the old system. Far from that, he simply repackaged it. Rather than using traditional political favors, he now relied on corporate financing, commercial expansion, and sophisticated business structure to achieve many of the same goals. That perception explains why, for many football fans, Infantino has become just as controversial as the men who came before him. The face of the top may have changed, but the way FIFA operates never truly did. Now, if there was one moment that made a lot of people really question whether Gianni Infantino was really serious about reforming FIFA, it came all the way back in May of 2017, just over a year after taking office. During a FIFA Congress in Bahrain, Infantino oversaw the sudden removal of two of the most senior figures on FIFA's independent ethics committee, the chief investigator, Cornel Borbelli, and chief judge, Hans-Joachim Eckert. These weren't ordinary FIFA executives. They were the lawyers who had led many of the investigations that helped expose corruption inside FIFA. Their work played a key role in bringing down powerful figures such as Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini. Many saw them as proof that FIFA was finally beginning to hold its own leaders accountable. So their dismissal shocked the football world, and the timing of it all made the decision even more controversial. At the time they were removed, Borbelli's investigative team was reportedly viewing several ethics complaints involving Infantino himself. Those complaints include allegations surrounding the use of private jets, expensive travel, gifts, and questions over compliance with FIFA's internal governance rules during his first year as president. Infantino denied any wrongdoing, but for many observers, removing the people responsible for investigating FIFA's leadership created an obvious conflict of interest. Borbelli didn't stay silent after losing his job. Soon after his dismissal, he publicly warned that FIFA had seriously weakened its own anti-corruption system. He argued that years of progress had been undone and said the independence of FIFA's ethics process had been severely damaged. If that wasn't bad enough, you have Infantino's plan to hold the World Cup every 2 years instead of every 4. In 2021, FIFA officially began promoting the idea of a biennial men's and women's World Cup, arguing that more frequent tournaments would also help grow the game and create more opportunities for countries outside of Europe's traditional football powers. I'm sure that's the reason, not to make more money, right? To lead the project, Infantino turned to Arsene Wenger. The former Arsenal manager, who was now FIFA's chief of global football development, became the public face of the campaign. Together, Wenger and Infantino argued that younger generations wanted more major tournaments and that a 2-year cycle would generate billions of dollars in additional revenue that could then be distributed to football associations around the world. See how they hid their actual motive? To most people, it was obvious that this was another attempt to generate more money. So UEFA and CONMEBOL quickly joined forces to oppose the proposal. Domestic leagues warned that squeezing another World Cup into an already packed calendar would create scheduling chaos. Player unions argued that footballers were already playing too many matches. It got so bad that even organizations outside of football became involved. The International Olympics Committee warned that a biennial World Cup would clash with the Olympic Games and damage the wider international sporting calendar. As opposition continued to grow, some European football associations reportedly began discussing the possibility of leaving FIFA altogether if the proposal went ahead. Nearly every major stakeholder in football was pushing back at the same time. Then came the speech that made the controversy even worse. Speaking before the Council of Europe in early 2022, Infantino defended the proposal by arguing that football could give young people around the world greater hope and opportunities. They love this line, it's fantastic propaganda. During his comments, Infantino also suggested that creating more football opportunities could help prevent Africans from risking dangerous journeys across the Mediterranean in search of a better life. Politicians, journalists, and human rights organizations accused Infantino of using a humanitarian tragedy to justify a commercial football proposal. So what had already begun as an unpopular idea suddenly became a PR disaster. Eventually, the pressure became too great. Facing overwhelming resistance from everybody, FIFA quietly backed away from the proposal. At a later FIFA Congress, Infantino insisted that FIFA had never actually proposed a biennial World Cup, describing the entire process as a little more than a feasibility study that had been explored by Arsene Wenger. Way to throw your own employee under the bus. The explanation naturally convinced very few people. After months of publicly promoting the idea, it was obvious that Infantino was simply trying to distance himself from a proposal that had become politically impossible to deliver. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will love this one too. Check it out right here.